First up, we have with us Rajiv Aggarwal, Director and Head of Public Policy, India, Meta, who will be spearheading this fireside chat. And joining Rajiv on the stage, we have with us Dr. Saurabh Garg, Chief Executive Officer, Unique Identification Authority of India, UIDAI. So if I may please invite Mr. Rajiv Aggarwal and Dr. Saurabh Garg, and can we please have a huge, huge round of applause for the transformational impact that Aadhaar has had in our lives indeed. And this time we'll focus on rethinking welfare distribution through Aadhaar. So that's the focus of our session. And I'd like to hand over the proceedings to Mr. Rajiv Aggarwal. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. The world's truly a stage. And I think so India is absolutely at the center of it. And India today is at the center of the digital ecosystem globally. And I think so you have a very crucial role to play, and it's indeed a privilege for me to be here with Dr. Saurabh Garg, who is, who is at the heart, at the center, and who's managing the entire Aadhaar ecosystem, which is at the very center of the Jam Trinity, and literally maybe today the lifeline of India, if I were to say so, for all of us who have been entering airports, verifying our ITRs, or as simple as going to a kiosk to obtain a SIM card. Aadhaar is something which has become almost ubiquitous in our lives today. So a privilege to have you here, sir, and to welcome you on the stage.
Thank you. A pleasure for me to be here on this forum. And I must thank the organizers of the Global FinTech Fest for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. And all I can say is that Aadhaar is happy to be the digital rails on which the digital economy is hopefully running well. And look forward to continuing the role of being the digital infrastructure, the digital public platform, so to say, and look forward to this journey as we move ahead.
Absolutely. Digital rails, I think that's, I'll take it off from there. So we have, and if my memory serves me correct, over 300 central schemes, 500 state schemes that are using Aadhaar for effective delivery of these services, welfare services to citizens across the length and breadth of India. Would really like to ask for your insights on how does Aadhaar really help in linking welfare distribution to the citizens and help the government in making sure that there's more effective and impactful delivery of these services to the citizens. And just as a side question, are there any other current schemes that you're looking at towards linking with Aadhaar in the near future?
Yeah. So let me just step back and say that it's been about 10 years, about a decade since Aadhaar started in 2010. And since then, we've reached a stage that we've issued about 1.34 billion, 134 Aadhaar cards. And we are at a stage where 100% of adult residents in the country have Aadhaar. So anyone above the age of 18, unless there are some isolated pockets, remote pockets, I would expect that everyone has an Aadhaar, and I'm sure, and I do hope that everyone in this room does have an Aadhaar. Otherwise, my statement would fall. So we've reached a stage where 100% of adult residents of the country have an Aadhaar. Even if we look at the 0 to 18 age group, it's between the ages of 5 or 6 to 18, also it's more than 92, 93%. And by the time they reach 18, it becomes 100%. And it's the 0 to 5 age group where every year we have about 2.5 to 3 crore births where the penetration is low, and that's an ongoing process. We work with the state governments, and by the time they reach 5 years, most of them have an Aadhaar. In fact, our objective is with the Aadhaar linkage with birth registration, that along with the birth certificates, we should be able to provide the Aadhaar number. Obviously, there would need to be a mandatory biometric update at the age of 5 and 15 so as to ensure that authentication can be done. But so given that after 10 years we've reached this position of 100% adults having an Aadhaar, that in itself transforms the way that we can conceptualize and design programs and schemes. And I think that came to the fore when a couple of years back we launched, there was PM Kisan, there was Pehel, which enabled within a couple of months of the scheme being conceptualized that it got implemented. And that happened because of the existence of Aadhaar. As you mentioned, we have nearly 1,000 odd programs of the government, 650 of the state governments, around 300 odd of the central government, which are run on Aadhaar. And the reasons why they do, I think, are the benefits that Aadhaar offers for to these schemes. And just to enumerate some of them, one is obviously deduplication, that you can't have the same person twice in that same program, so there will be no doubling of benefits given to the same person or same family. The PDS, for example, has seen significant gains in this respect. The second is removal of ghost beneficiaries. So if the person actually doesn't exist, but someone has put that person's name, that automatically gets deleted once the Aadhaar authentication is done, and there is no biometric behind it, there is no fingerprint, no iris, no face behind it, automatically it gets deleted. The third is in terms of being able to transfer funds directly into the bank account of that person, and therefore the possibilities of leakage of funds reduce. Now we have reached a situation where right from the treasury to the ultimate beneficiary, for example, in the Prime Minister's Awas Yojana, you can have the funds getting transferred directly to the bank account based on the documentation that is done. And the fourth, I would say, is in terms of how we can identify beneficiaries. The ability to be able to target, select, identify beneficiaries with Aadhaar provides a totally new method. And it's because of these benefits is why all the schemes, the 1,000 odd schemes, and the focus is to ensure that any beneficiary-oriented scheme or a scheme oriented towards a group of beneficiaries. For example, family is a unit, PDS is linked to Aadhaar, or we have self-help groups or other groups of beneficiaries. So if any benefits, subsidies, or any service needs to be transferred to them, it can very well be done using the Aadhaar platform. And the authentication that Aadhaar offers 24/7 is the power that all these schemes leverage. So you are asking me what can be some of the new programs. Any program which wants to essentially remove ghost beneficiaries, remove duplication of beneficiaries would benefit by this. And the direct benefit transfer mission, which operates under the Cabinet Secretariat, they've done an analysis of the benefits that have accrued to different programs due to the direct benefits transfers offered by Aadhaar. And just in the 4 or 5 sectors that they've done the analysis, the benefits have been over 2 lakh crores over the past 5 to 7 years. So I think that's the reason why a lot of programs run on the Aadhaar rails, as you mentioned, and would benefit from that. And we would be very happy to ensure that these benefits are used by different programs and schemes.
That's actually amazing, and I'm sure, you know, I had somewhere in my notes that the coverage is 99% of the adult population, so I actually stand corrected. And unless we are actually able to isolate maybe one table out here in the entire convention center, where 3 or 4 people could be seated without an Aadhaar in this entire setup, and that too will be, I guess, a tough one to find out here. Absolutely, but with the, you know, with the way Aadhaar has really changed the way schemes are run, the way schemes are even conceptualized. I mean, you mentioned PM Kisan or the Pehel schemes, which actually rolled out within 2 months of conceptualization, something which was unthinkable maybe a decade ago. So do you see a paradigm shift, a change coming in, say, in the next 5 years in terms of the welfare distribution, the way it is done, and especially in the linkage of Aadhaar to the way welfare schemes would be laid out?
Yeah. So I think given, as I mentioned, the different schemes and the focus that any beneficiary-oriented scheme. So I think now we've reached a stage where we can think of how we can move from an application-based process of selecting beneficiaries to an entitlement-based system, where keeping in view the entitlement or keeping in view the kind of beneficiaries and people who would be benefiting, we can move towards that. And that will also help in a much larger sense the inclusion of people at the vulnerable or at the bottom of the pyramid. And when Aadhaar was initially started, people spoke of the dangers of exclusion because of Aadhaar. And I would like to say that now, in fact, it's the benefit of inclusion because of Aadhaar, because automatically Aadhaar gives the platform to ensure that anyone who has an Aadhaar can get included in the program. So I think as a tool of inclusion in itself, using Aadhaar would help in that. And I think that's the vision of Digital India going forward, to look at how, and which is the vision also of Aadhaar, how it can help in the ease of living of residents. And that's the vision of Digital India. And Digital India encompasses not only the government sector, but also the private sector. And all the fintechs are out here today, startups are out here today. And we look forward to partnering with the different partners, sectors, private sector players, startups in this vision of Digital India, in which Aadhaar. And in fact, I would like to ask you that, since you are a representative of a very large platform, how do you think that more private sector can help in the vision of Digital India that the government is very keen to propagate going forward?
Oh, I'd not expected a reverse, but no, but thank you for this. I truly believe that even as the government has responsibility towards, say, the welfare schemes we've been talking of, and Aadhaar is so ably enabling the entire distribution of those welfare schemes, the corporate sector or the private sector too has a role to play, especially in terms of the vision of a digital India and a digitally enabled India. If I were to talk of Meta and the platforms that we operate under here, be it Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp especially, and we do have a booth out here, then there's so much we can do. And I guess if we were to look at the last 2 years when the COVID pandemic hit us, the way the corporate sector also rose to the occasion to enable the delivery of services to people. So if it was tying up with MyGov on the COVID help desk and the COVID chatbot, with over 8 crore people, citizens of India, actually getting to avail authentic information on COVID through the MyGov chatbot, or almost 3.5 crore people downloading their vaccination certificates on the chatbot. And now, obviously, the latest addition is the DigiLocker services. So that's being rolled out in a phased manner. So we will see more and more of this digital enablement coming through these platforms. And obviously, it's partnering with the government. The two have to move hand in hand, be it in terms of these citizen-centric services, be it in terms of enabling small businesses to run their businesses in a manner in which the online platforms are available for them to reach out to their customers and to actually be able to, even when there are geographical or other blockers, they can actually run their businesses. I guess, and this to us has been, it's been a great humbling experience, if I may say so, when people have actually used these platforms to connect with each other, to reach out to each other for help, for oxygen, for any other help that was needed. And I think so that has been a great learning experience for us also.
So, I mean, if I can just add to this, from Aadhaar side, from the UIDAI side, I would, in fact, want to mention it since a large number of people, startups from the fintech world are here, that we look forward to working closely with a lot of players in the private sector on how they can also use the benefits of Aadhaar. Obviously, the issues of privacy, of consent remain paramount, but a voluntary usage of Aadhaar, by which the benefits of the eKYC onboarding of customers for different private sector can be enabled. And we already have some offline verification mechanisms which are based purely on the voluntary usage, as I meant, of the consent of the individual. There is the QR code, there is the XML file. So we would be, on our part also, happy going forward to look forward to working with them and look at opportunities that exist. But obviously, let me again say that privacy and consent remain strong pillars on which Aadhaar is based on, and that will remain paramount as we go ahead.
No, absolutely, and privacy has to be the mainstay for everything that we do, because I mean that's something all of us as individuals, as citizens, and as responsible corporates have to make sure that that is protected at all costs. So in fact, you did mention startups, and that's something we passionately believe in. We have been at one point in time a startup ourselves, and so we are looking at bringing in startups even in the as technology expands, and we look at extended realities, we look at the metaverse. How can we bring, and India can actually be the hub of technological advances in that field. So that's something we are trying to advance. Through CBSE, we are trying to get an entirely new generation which is digitally enabled, and teaching them the new technologies and exposing them to the possibilities that exist out there. So we feel that we have a role to play, and we would definitely like to walk hand in hand with the government and with obviously the UIDAI going forward. But let me come back to the point that you had made of almost the entire 100% of the adult population being covered by Aadhaar. And given the fact that we are talking of financial services, we are talking of the fintech sector out here, how do you see Aadhaar being leveraged for more effective delivery of financial services? The last maybe 5 to 10 years have actually been a game changer, but how do you see this being leveraged much more? And we do hear talk of Aadhaar 2.0. So what can the fintech sector expect from the Aadhaar 2.0?
The usage of Aadhaar in the financial sector has perhaps been the most heartening. I don't know whether I mentioned this. We have around 8 crore authentications a day that happen on a daily basis. Someone somewhere is using it 8 crore times a day. And nearly 40% of these authentications or usage of Aadhaar is for the Aadhaar-enabled payment systems, by which through the micro ATMs, which are these POS machines which are there with, let's say, a Kirana shop somewhere, there are nearly 50 lakh micro ATMs across the country, around 35 lakh operating on any given day if you pick. So, I mean, that also enables, if I can say that, makes geography history, in the sense that even if you don't have a brick and mortar branch, the fact that you have a Kirana shop having this micro ATM, that villager can operate their bank accounts using them. They can deposit cash, they can withdraw cash by using Aadhaar authentication, fingerprint authentication. And the 6.5 lakh villages and 35 lakh machines opening at any time. So I think the banking sector has really leveraged the use of the Aadhaar ecosystem. Going forward, we are working with the regulators, whether it's RBI, whether it's SEBI, IRDA, PFRDA, on how regulated entities which are working under their supervision, how they can also use the power of Aadhaar with, of course, consent of the individual to get onboarded as an investor, as in the fintech sector, in the NBFC sector. And I'm happy to say that in the last few months itself, nearly 300 odd entities, NBFCs, investment advisors regulated by SEBI, and such other entities regulated by any one of the regulators have been onboarded. And we expect that the onboarding experience of getting new customer acquisition for them would become so much more seamless going forward. On our part, we are looking at ways by which we can help in the ease of living of residents, as I mentioned, and that ease of living would include the ability for them to look at investment opportunities that they have, or banking opportunities, or payment opportunities that an individual has, and how more and more such entities can leverage Aadhaar for onboarding new residents and give residents more choice going forward. The number of such applications which come through the regulators is increasing, and I'm quite hopeful that this will further increase the ways by which Aadhaar is being used by these entities. I can add one more thing, that we've built a sandbox in our tech center so that anyone wanting to offer a new service, we can do a proof of concept, and so that they can test out some new service which has not been hitherto thought of. Obviously, we restrict ourselves to those entities which are regulated by any one of the regulators. So as long as it's a regulated entity, we would be very happy to have them look at what can be done. And in fact, immediately after this session is one such mechanism that we have developed to streamline onboarding of new customers using our Aadhaar app. So that would be discussed, and we would be happy to get comments of the fintechs who are here today to see how that process can get further streamlined. So we have an authentication system which obviously pings in onto our servers, and we have the verification system which is offline using the QR code, using the XML file, and now that we would be discussing, and which is in a way our first offering from the sandbox that we have internally, the use of the Aadhaar app, which can be done much more in a wide manner, and of course with the consent of the resident or the mobile phone owner on whose phone the mobile app rests, the Aadhaar app rests.
That's actually pretty interesting, and I would say music to our ears, and a lot of people out here would would really go for the sandbox. I mean, it's actually work being cut out for all of us to use the sandbox, and obviously the Aadhaar, which is one of the first offerings that you've mentioned out there. But let me move our focus to the to the global arena, and we have seen reports UIDAI collaborating with international agencies in the recent past, and this is basically on the Aadhaar digital ID architecture that you've been establishing. So, and this is something we have been seeing even in UPI. We have the NPCI, and the kind of templates that India is preparing and setting up, which are now being followed increasingly by other countries and across the globe. We do have the G20 presidency also now coming to India later this year, and India is going to be hosting G20 for the next 1 year. Do you see Aadhaar as being one of the mainstays of India's, so to say, India enabling the globally integrated fintech, on the fintech sector and financial technologies?
There is a lot of international interest in the Aadhaar architecture and the fact that It is a frugal architecture, it is cost effective, and it's been scaled up within a period of 10 years to a level of 130 crores or more. We get a lot of visits, delegations from different countries across the globe. We are in touch with the World Bank and other UN agencies on how the digital architecture offered by Aadhaar can be gainfully used by other countries. So going forward, we no doubt look forward to working with other countries who wish to develop their own legal identities. In fact, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals has as target 16.9 a legal identity for all by the year 2030. So Aadhaar offers an excellent scalable model for many countries. On our part, we would be very happy to work with them. No doubt the G20 chair offers another opportunity to showcase the India stack and the work that's been done in Digital India. And I think we have a number of offerings and on our part and if I can put it on behalf of Digital India, definitely we look forward to working with other countries. And I'm sure we look forward that our ecosystem partners in India would also get the opportunity to work with partners across the world in developing the India stack and the other products of Digital India across the world.
That's really heartening. I am not sure how much time we have, but I can see the clock still gives us a few minutes more. So I'd like to open up to the audience any questions that you would like to raise from Dr. Saurabh.
There's this lady out here.
Second row. Yes, please, ma'am. Could you just identify yourself and then ask your question?
So, my name is Savita. I represent a company called Hakdarshak. We are in the business of helping the government's agenda of scheme saturation. So we work with a lot of beneficiaries, helping them to discover their schemes through our tech platform, and then also providing them the services to get access to the schemes. One of the challenges that we're constantly seeing, right? So you're right in saying the saturation of Aadhaar enrollment is 100%. The biggest challenge we see and the biggest reason for exclusions from benefit delivery is the fact that their Aadhaars are not updated. And one of the challenges from an ecosystem perspective players like us have today is that private sector is not, to quite a large extent, it's a very small set of players who are allowed to do Aadhaar updates. So is there any thought in terms of opening that up, of course with the right guardrails in place, to enable that issue to be corrected? Because we see that even though the entitlement exists, there is exclusion because the beneficiary database is not updated in Aadhaar. Thank you.
Yeah, so let me just mention that updates is the area that the focus is now, because as I mentioned, enrollment is now more or less behind us. And I can mention that last year alone, there were nearly 20 crore updates that happened across. We are expanding our infrastructure and we are onboarding all postmen who have been given tablets and they can do updates. So we'll have 1.5 lakh postmen so they can go house to house and update. A large number have already been updated and going forward all the postmen will get updated. We have around more than 50,000 centers across the country where these updates happen. A lot of the citizen service centers which exist, if they meet the benchmarks that we've set out, many of them also are on this on our update platform or our update ecosystem. Apart from that, we've also put on the online mechanism. We have an online portal where people can update their address, which is one of the most common fields for updation. So we are looking at ways to strengthen the update ecosystem. As you mentioned, we need to have the appropriate guardrails in place to prevent any kind of frauds happening. We are also now encouraging people to update their Aadhaars at least once in 10 years. We've just recently brought out the notification for that. And given the fact that it's been about 10 to 12 years since we started Aadhaar, it's a time that at least once in 10 years the update happens. And possibly going forward, we'll be encouraging for biometric updates also. I'm confident with these steps, we would have an ecosystem, if not already in place, with a combination of the mobile app, the online portal, the postman, and our enrollment 50,000 odd, which will take care of this. And we are seeing increasingly the number of people using the online mechanism is so much higher. And I think that would take care of even some of the areas which may have got left out.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, here. एकता फ्रॉम जी बिजनेस। सर, मेरा सवाल आपसे ये होगा कि कस्टमर से जुड़ी, कंज्यूमर से जुड़ी और कौन सी नई सुविधाएं आप आधार के साथ लिंक करना चाहेंगे, और स्पेशली जो बीते दिनों में हमने फिंगरप्रिंट फ्रॉड भी देखा, तो बायोमेट्रिक्स को लेकर आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
जैसे मैंने बोला कि हमारा विजन है ईज ऑफ लिविंग। जो भी स्कीम the benefit जो चाहती है from Aadhaar platform usage, which is deduplication, removal of duplicates and ghost beneficiaries, वो स्कीम जो भी है beneficiary oriented schemes हैं, हम उनको चाहेंगे कि वो आधार प्लेटफॉर्म यूज़ करे और इसका बेनिफिट करे। Cyber security is one area that we are constantly on top of, whether it's any attempted fraud, any report of fraud, and we continually update our security systems in terms of that. Recently, there were some attempts we heard of use of what is known as gummy fingers. So we brought in a liveliness check also in the fingerprint authentication system. So we nip, our attempt is to nip any attempts to try and overcome the systems. We have a strong cybersecurity team. We work with different agencies, both technical agencies, intelligence agencies, to get information on this. In fact, we've recently announced a bug bounty program also that we would like to work with ethical hackers and see what kind of vulnerabilities they can detect in our systems in a closed environment. So let me assure you that fraud prevention attempts by this is something that we are constantly abreast of, and that's highest on our priority. As I mentioned, we do about 8 crore authentications a day, and there have been attempts, but various attempts are where there is some amount of collusion or some other kind of issues. It's not something which is related to our Aadhaar ecosystem, but even then, it is something we give the highest importance to.
Thank you. I think so. That's really heartening to note. I know our time's up, so I think we'll have to move on. But thank you.
Thank you.
Saurabh.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure
being here on the stage with you.